talking of family,
Yeah.
Star Wars Legion.
Yeah.
I feel like I've got a huge extended family on BC4 now. There are a lot of us that are Star Warsing at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I bought the underlying model, or the underlying toy,
Uh-huh.
that I'm going to use for my hovercraft slash landing craft.
Nice. Do you have it with
for
you?
the Imperials? Nope. Trying not to distract poor John. When I bring it on, I'm thinking of bringing it on the show already primed up and stuff like that, rather than just bringing it on just as a toy. I'm not sure yet. I'm deciding how to approach this project, but I have picked out the underlying toy, and I want to say a massive thank you to all of the guys who have been helping me, both in the comments and behind the scenes, by pointing me to references within the Star Wars legends and canon. To say, there has been hovercraft, and there's actually been hovercraft used.
Nice.
Proper, normal hovercraft. That aren't using
grav hovercraft?
Not repulsors. Because repulsors are expensive and difficult to maintain.
Yeah.
So there are some factories that have been pumping out more traditional based hovercraft.
That makes a lot of sense. If a technology is cheap and easy to make and it's good enough, why go for the sci-fi option?
Exactly. So based on that, that's gave me great confidence to actually keep some of the recognizable hovercraft elements in, rather than trying to swap them out with some sort of weird repulsor kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm more interested in it looking imperial and militaristic. Unless I decide to use it for the rebels. I haven't decided yet which way.
Yeah, well, I will say this.
Again, bless
you.
But I will agree with the idea of bringing it in whenever it's already primed, because that's whenever you first get the real sense of the thing you're working on. It's whenever it's that unified color, everything comes together.
Yeah.
You know, whereas if you do it before that, it does look like just a bunch of bits slapped together until you get that.
But I'm not the only one that's been working on Star Wars stuff. Ben, there's just loads of it going on around the side at the moment.
Yeah, so me, Lance, and John decided that what we do after the Hobby Hangout during this week was we pull together everything that's been happening in terms of Star Wars Legion into one place. So as you can see here, we can go through some of the amazing projects that you guys have been working on and give them a little bit of more love. So the first one of these is by Soft, or Sotf, I suppose would be the right way to pronounce that. And this was looking at some really awesome Empire soldiers here, as you can see. But the cool thing about this was the way that the rebasing had been done. So he's taken them away from this idea of using them as sort of Endor, in the Forest of Endor and all that kind of thing, and instead moved them towards a urban setting, which I thought was really cool. So you've got this sort of like grating that you might see on the surface of Coruscant, for example. The thing that was really cool as well with the Speeder Vikes is the way that he's used the piping on it to not only tell a little bit of a story and work the narrative, but also work as the guides for the facings on the models as well, which I thought was a really cool idea.
Yes, very clever. Yeah, love that. I've been looking at the possibility of setting up a gaming table. Jerry actually texted me about this. It's amazing how little synchronicities all kind of come together. But Jerry messaged me and said, "Do you know what, Warren? It's just an idea. But if we were able to get some of that Plascraft terrain, do you know the Hak Islam style terrain that Plascraft do?
Yeah.
He says, if we were able to get some of that there, and we had some stuff, golden stuff that we had already sprayed and stuff. He said, if you were able to get that, we could maybe do something like Naboo or something like that. Something kind of Naboo-esque.
Yeah.
You know, or even, I'm not sure if anybody really knows what the architecture of parts of Alderaan were like. You know, it's
I don't know. I think Alderaan was very, very, well, from the one scene I can remember, it was very metropolitan.
Metropolitan.
Metropolitan, yeah.
Well, but and I was thinking, that's a great idea. So, the guys from Plascraft have actually been in the studio with us recently, okay? And they sent over some terrain. And in one of the boxes, you will not believe this, right? It came a load of that very terrain with a letter.
Yes.
And the letter said, "Hi, Warren, why not have some fun with this stuff? We think it could make a great Star Wars table, possibly some weird part of Tatooine."
Possibly.
So I started thinking, oh, I wondered, did they double team me, the pair of them, right? So I have this stuff, okay, and so over the next few weeks or whatever, I want to try and get it built up because I think I'm going to go with Jerry's idea, and try and recreate some kind of Naboo kind of. I think we've done a lot of desert, and the Hack-as-Lamb stuff. You always see it in desert.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it in a different environment. Well, so I'm thinking something
a lot more lush and tropical.
Yeah, something more lush and.
See, I spoke to the guy who was across Lewis about this, about the Hack-as-Lamb stuff, that in the backstory of Infinity, they are actually terraformers.
Yes,
so there's nothing to stop you, even for your Infinity games, putting that into even a nice forest.
Oh, into like what do you call it, an oasis?
Yeah.
And it also future-proofs it as well, because obviously when Fantasy Flight Games come out with the clone troopers and the droids, suddenly you've got a Naboo table ready to go.
Hey! So, but remember that Naboo was still around.
Oh,
during the middle trilogy.
Yeah.
And, you know, all of these planets and many millions, like there's 50 million planets, and they don't have names for them all. So it's all of these places still had garrisons and data files and wonderfully analog things when they could all have been done digitally. You know, MacGuffins galore.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this, is when you actually start to understand, and I think this is why 40K has done so well as a game and as a war game. I think it's done well because of the fact that it didn't start off as a movie. Whereas I think Star Wars as a tabletop game suffered because Star Wars for most people has had quite a narrow view. Okay, whereas 40K started with a very open view. You can create whatever you want. There's all kinds of worlds. There's more worlds out there than you'll ever be able to create. Now, Games Workshop have maintained that. My little rant earlier on was about fanboys closing it in to the point where you couldn't game in the gaps. Well, but Star Wars had the opposite problem. So whereas, you know, if all you knew was from the movie, you had this quite closed view of 4 planets, 3 battles. You know, it's.
Yeah, well, getting a sense of scale for such a broad IP is actually quite difficult. I had a moment recently with 40K lore where I read the backstory to Necromunda, and reading through that, you know, you hear about a hive city, and you think, oh, okay, it's about the same population as my hometown. Actually reading through that gives you such a sense of the stratums of society within it, and the numbers of people that are actually involved in living and maintaining something so vast, and that's only a very small segment of something even bigger.
Yeah.
So it really gave me a sense of just how lost you could get within the 40K universe, and maybe Star Wars needs something similar.
Well, let me pitch one at you. Okay, here's a question: population of planet Earth.
About 7 billion at the minute.
Yeah, seven and a half. Yes, 7 billion. Right.
Yeah, I can't imagine that many people.
Population of Coruscant. Right. So, do we know what Coruscant is before we go any further? Yeah. So Coruscant is the city planet. It's one of the great things about Star Wars that all planets are all covered with identical terrain. All but it's a city planet. It is basically it's in the inner core of the galaxy. It is like the galactic headquarters of it. Right. So
I'm gonna go.
No, let me give you a couple other facts. Okay. So the Coruscant, if I'm remembering correctly, we've seen them flying over the top of it. Okay, that's 120 miles from the surface.
Right.
Okay, or something like that. It is something. It's extraordinarily tall, and then as you go down, you get deeper and deeper into a hive type city. And even at the very bottom, there's basically like zombie-like creatures that actually live at the bottom. Okay, so population.
I'm gonna say maybe 20 trillion.
20 trillion.
Ish. Yeah.
Trillion.
So
like so a trillion is 1,000 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Ben.
20 billion. So keep it to the billions.
You think it's about just over twice the population of planet Earth?
Oh no, yeah, 30 billion. 30 billion.
So you think it's about 3 times The population of planet Earth.
Yeah, I'm going way out there.
You think it's about 3,000
if it's
times.
So dense, yeah.
I'm even right there at what did you say? 30 trillion.
30 trillion. Yeah.
All right, so you actually think it's 30,000 times
the density. Yeah,
the density of planet Earth. The answer is actually 3 trillion.
Oh.
Okay.
Off by a factor of 10.
Yeah, so it's so yes, hive cities absolutely
that population huge
exist. You know, it's so it's already there, and the I think it is the most populous planet within the Star Wars galaxy.
Yeah.
But there are others that are like of 1 trillion, 900 billion, and so on and so forth. Like, it is, but then it's sci-fi. You can throw it.
You can throw numbers at it. Yeah.
I saw a great picture, right, of Snoke's ship.
Yeah.
In the Last Jedi, in the new movie, Snoke has basically a flagship.
Yeah.
It's called the Supremacy, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And I got a book with them. I love these cutaway books where you see the insides and stuff of the vehicles.
Yeah.
On Snoke's Supremacy, to give you an idea of how big this is, there are 2 construction elements. There are 2 big hangar bays where they're building Star Destroyers inside Snoke's Supremacy.
How do you get the resources in to construct the... Okay, never mind.
It's nearly 200,000 meters or something like that in width, Snoke's ship. That's how big that thing is. Yeah. It's absolutely enormous. It's huge. Yeah. But this is what I'm saying. We can game in the gaps and all this. Yeah. Who else have we got, Ben, working on their Legion?
Yeah, so running through, the second person we're going to look at is Sundancer here, who's painted up a very awesome looking Darth Vader, you can see. But the thing that really drew me to what he'd been doing was the way that he's painted up some of his Stormtroopers once again. This one was more towards the sort of gaming aspect of things, where he's done those coloured bases around the bottom of the models, so that it doesn't detract from the models as a whole. But it also means that it's very easy for you to tell which ones are which on the tabletop. Yeah. One of the things that Lance pointed out is that if you were going to a Star Wars Legion tournament, there's just the core set out at the moment, really, and all your Stormtroopers fell on the floor next to someone else's. How would you know which ones were yours? Well, this would be a good way to tell that. So that's very cool.
It would be a very good way to tell that. Yeah, that's some really nice work on those Stormtroopers.
Yeah, it's actually a really clever way to mark out your units, because I have found in some of the games I've played with Jerry, where I have had units close together and then split them apart and went, wait, how many was in this unit? How many was in this unit? So very good idea. Very, very.
You can get that. We should try and get them wee cool mini or not rings.
Oh, the base inserts.
Yeah, base inserts.
Yeah, they would work really well for this.
But does the base size matter so much in?
Not particularly.
That it would make any difference. You know the way in some games you really don't want to muck around with the base size.
You'd be adding what, an extra 2 mil to a base size. Unless you're playing a very hard-nosed opponent, I really don't think anyone would care.
Yeah, I think that could be a good way of doing that. So it also means that you could mix up your units a little bit.
Yeah.
Because could you have units with 2 of the guys with the rocket launchers?
No.
So, there's
the upgrades are very, very hard lines. So for let's see, what is it? For infantry, you can add an additional base trooper, an additional special weapon trooper, one of one type. Okay.
All right, so if you already have a guy with a rocket launcher, you can't add another guy with a rocket launcher?
No, that was the mistake we made in our first game, I believe, whenever we put it out there.
Yeah.
As well as that, you can have a grenade and I think a piece of equipment. I think there's like 4 upgrade slots on them, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So it's very much like X-Wing. You have very strict sets on what you can add to a unit.
A lot of fixed parameters. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else, Ben?
Yeah, next up we've got Suetonius Plenus, or everybody knows as Andy, and I think that what he's done is he's added a real sense of realism to his models here. So it's one of the things that Andy does is that whenever he's painting a lot of his models, he'll do them in a sense which has like almost a washed out feel to them, almost like it's been done with a photograph, which I thought was really cool. But I just really love the way that this has been put together. As you can see on the Stormtrooper, he's done some really good work on making it look like a realistic soldier on the battlefield. He's got the mud up the legs and the greaves and things, which I thought was really cool. And then even when you look at his version of Luke Skywalker as well, it feels more like a real person rather than like this heroic character, which I thought was a really nice touch, as if he's been down in the dirt with the rest of his soldiers fighting against the Empire as well. So yeah, some amazing stuff from Andy, and he's been doing some conversion work as well going forward, so make sure to check out what he's been doing in the What Are You Painting Now thread as well. So yeah,
awesome. Anyone else?
Yeah, we've got a couple more to go through. So we've got Tony Sylvie here, who's been doing some amazing stuff. He's painted up a really awesome version of Darth Vader there. Yeah. And then we've got Hairy Brains as well, who was actually painting what John was painting this week, which is one of the Airspeeders. And it's come across really, really nicely. It's got a very pulpy action comic book feel to it that I thought with this one. Yeah. So it was really nice. So a very simple scheme that's very, very punchy on the tabletop. We've got Arion as well, who's been doing some really nice stuff with his models. And he's been customizing the look of his stormtroopers a little bit by adding like red markers and stuff onto their armor, which I thought was a really cool idea. Yeah, so it's a really nice touch, and it also means that it took us into a discussion about what you might be able to do in terms of the customization of stormtroopers going forward. Like, for example, there are obviously probably stormtroopers out there that aren't just coloured in white. There must be some in blue, and obviously we've seen Death Troopers in black. Maybe you go a little further and do something with red, or example as well. So
I looked into this. Whenever during the Clone Wars, initially when they all rolled off whatever it was, the planet that had created them all, they were all fairly identical. But over time, they actually their own personalities and stuff came through, and they did start to decorate their own armor and stuff like that into their own units.
Even in the movies, you actually saw, I think it was trooper classifications actually had different colored flashing on the armor they were wearing.
But when Palpatine then took over, he started to basically disband the clone army and replace it with the Imperial Stormtroopers. Yeah, and he was the one that basically brought it into line that they were all pretty much exactly the same. Yeah. However,
which is a really strange thing. You get rid of an army of essentially identical soldiers to replace it with an army of non-identical soldiers who you then make look identical.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he did it. I know he had his reason. It's a really, really smart thing. The whole Palpatine story has been really glossed over in the movies. You know, we don't get the full effect of.
I kind of got the same thing with Snoke.
Yeah, Snoke has been utterly glossed over. We have no idea about Snoke. Yeah, but I mean, the difference is they didn't even attempt to tell Snoke's story. Yeah, with Palpatine's story, they were trying to tell Palpatine's story, but they really didn't get it across. So the whole shtick of Palpatine is that he conned the entire Empire. Yeah. So we get just quick flashes of it, and you never get the full complexity of his plan. You know, the all of the strings that he, like a composer, pulled and drew together to take control of the galaxy. Because it was in many ways, although you did have the Clone Wars, in many ways it was almost like a bloodless coup for him.
Yeah, but even the Clone Wars felt as if they had been engineered by him, from what I saw.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
He masterfully put it all together.
Yeah, so he created a war to allow himself to take power.
Yeah, but he didn't allow himself to take power. He was pushed in. He created the environment that they pushed him into power, and then handed all of the additional power that the Chancellor normally never would have had. Yeah, they handed it all to him. Yeah. So what he did was he basically, through the master of false flags and everything else, created an environment where there was where the galaxy thought the best thing we could ever do is to give this guy power and then give him all the power. And that you couldn't fight your way into a position like that. Yeah. All you can do. And then, and during this whole time, he turned almost the entire galaxy against the Jedi. Yeah. And he was able to reframe the Jedi from what people thought were kind of like the defenders of the galaxy.
Yeah, benevolent order.
And basically, in the entire galaxy, there is only literally a handful of Jedi. You will never see a Jedi. Jedi were basically myth everywhere. Yeah. But he reframed the Jedi. That the Jedi were this reckless group of people who thought that they were superior to everybody else, that had created these wars and things like that. It was really, really interesting. Who's next, Ben?
Yeah, so we're just going to finish off with two interesting threads as well. So obviously, one of the big things about what we do in the Hobby and Painting Forum is you can always stick things into what are you painting now and show off your progress. But one of the other things we really like is people that show off everything in its entirety with proper full-on project logs, showing off the progress of how things have come together as well. And there are two people that have been doing that quite recently for Star Wars Legion. So the first one of these is Aegis with his hobby thread here. And as you can see, here is a couple of pictures from what he's been working on. He's painted up a whole bunch of his models, which just look fantastic, as pretty much everything that Aegis does ends up like. And he's also been showing off, if you go and check into the thread if you want to, also a lot of stuff to do with Imperial Assault as well. Yeah. So one of the big things about this was that when Star Wars Legion came out, people were talking about how it all meshed together. He's showing off a lot of the models he's been painting for Imperial Assault, and they match up quite well. So if you're interested in bringing some of those different characters in and mixing things up, there's obviously an option for you there. And then there's also Collins that we talked about in the community spotlight earlier in this episode as well, who's done some amazing work. If you want to go and check out his stuff, he's taken it all from the very, very beginning, cracking open the box. He's working on the base coating for all the different models, and now he's done the core set. He's working on all the vehicles and the expansions that are out as well for the game right now. So he's been working on ATSTs. He's got the airspeeder coming together, as you can see here as well, and just everything's looking fantastic for what he's been working on with this project. So if you want to get involved, ask some questions, get some tips, and get some advice on how to paint your own Star Wars Legion stuff, there's loads of stuff out there for you to go and check out over here on Beast Wars. So yeah,
I love his color scheme for the speeder.
Isn't it great?
Yes.
Yeah, and I love what he's done with his base, because he's fully based it, but he still has it so that you can clearly see where the firing arcs are through it.
It's left a little,
it's a really nice detail.
Really, really nice stuff.